Well, good morning to everybody. It might be dreary and cold outside, but I have already heard it once this morning. I'd rather have rain than snow. Sorry, Beverly. I know every time she posts about it, I'm one of the first ones to comment and say, stop. Just stop praying for snow, please. But before I start this morning, I want to say a little something, because I think these people go greatly underappreciated for what they do in this church. And the reason why I say that is because if you've ever played piano or organ, it is not easy. If you guys see anyone playing the organ, it's a full body thing. You have both towers, you have your pedals, and if you've ever played piano, I tried. I'm a music major, and I still can't do it. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of dedication. So, I mean, we really have some wonderful women here who play the organ and piano. So thank you so much. I know Patsy does it too. Just marvelous. I had an opportunity at AB. If you've ever been to AB, their chapel, they have a wonderful pipe organ. I know, Gail, we can't get one. I mean, this church cannot, we would have pipes all around here and the windows would blow up. I mean, it would be bad. It would be so bad. But every time I hear the organ and the piano playing, it just swells my heart. I truly believe if they would not do that, God's presence would be delayed. Because you walk in and you hear the organ, you hear the piano. I know they played How Great Thou Art, and it was wonderful. So thank you so much for what you guys do and your practice and your dedication to it, because I know it's not easy. I play the oboe, and even I find that to be difficult, and let alone playing with pedals and all your hands and everything. So thank you so much for what you two do. And, of course, for what Patsy does as well.
Yes, and I'll miss it so much.
For those who know, you said you played for 30 years?
Well, close to 60.
Close to 60. Once again, it's just one of those things where...
It breaks my heart.
But just once again, just thank you so much for what you ladies do. And it's a wonderful gift, especially to this church, because you can't find people who do that nowadays. But it's great to be here this morning to see so many friendly faces and meet some few new faces, which is awesome. Of course, we always open the doors to anyone who wants to be in here into God's house. And I just want to share a quick testimony with you all, because I find this to be interesting still. I've been here roughly, 5 months maybe, around there. I'm not really keeping track because it feels a lot longer than that because we're all so close and it's awesome. But it's always so interesting to go to new places and get a chance to meet new people. I told you all the other day, we went over to Showing Methodist, we served with them. If you ever get a chance, Pastor Bo Terrell is their minister over there. Wonderful man. I got a chance to listen to him preach, and he has a Southern gospel voice. He will rock the walls with God's word. And it's wonderful. And I got a chance to sit down with him and his wife, and I always love getting a chance to meet new people, but usually I don't introduce myself fully until they really ask you, like, what church do you attend to? I'll say, I'm the head pastor of Hampton Baptist. And it never seems to fail. Every single time I say that, the first thing they say to me is, well, you're like a little baby pastor. Oh, okay. Like in my head, I'm thinking, I'm 24 years old and I'm still a baby. Well, apparently that's never going to change. I'm just stuck with that title. But the reason why I love stuff like that is because, yes, I know I'm 24 years old, and I know whenever I say I'm old, I always get a lot of dirty glares, and I can understand why. But yet, I was born in 1993, and I got a chance to witness some advancements in technology. Now, I know, once again, I'll say what I want to say, because I know some people, they went from black and white television to color television and got a chance to see the true advancement of technology. But something that I remember back in the 90s, I'm sure everyone else can relate, was dial-up internet. It was the worst. You would wait 15 minutes for your internet to load, and you would take, maybe on each and every page, it would take 1 full minute plus to have the entire page to load. And by that time, someone would make a phone call. Next thing you know, the internet was cut off anyways. I still remember those times, because if you were expecting a phone call, you couldn't be on the internet and on the phone at the same time. It didn't work that way. But it's so cool to see the advancement of internet. We went from, you wait 15 minutes just to look at one page because you have to wait for dial-up to continue, and you have that awful sound, and it was just a hassle, to now we have immediate. It happens so quickly. You go home, you have your smartphones, you have your tablets, you have your laptop. As soon as you open it up, you're connected. You're done. If you want to look at the page, it takes less than a minute. And chances are, if it takes more than a minute, we're frustrated. Let's face it. I know I've been in that moment too. I'll be watching a movie on the internet, and it'll die out halfway through and be like, well, now what do I do? Like, my life is done. I can't go on. And it's always so interesting as well because you see some of these kids, and most of the younger generation, they never got a chance to experience dial-up. They know that if you have your phone and you're in the middle of nowhere, you can get on the internet. So it's always so interesting to see that. But something else that amazes me, and I'm sure everyone else can relate, is if you look right now at the booming industry of shopping. Of course, you have Walmart, you have Kmart, you have Dick's Sporting Goods, you have all these powerhouses. But right now, the highest ranked in all of shopping is online. Whether it's Amazon or you go to the special website of a certain store that you just don't want to go inside. I know for myself, 2 years ago for Christmas, I did all my shopping Black Friday online. So I avoided all the pushing and the shoving and the screaming and the spitting. I just said, I'm just going to do it at my leisure and be done. And the reason why I say that is because we've been spoiled with stuff like that. And yes, I know I'm only 20 years old, but even I can acknowledge that we've been spoiled. There was one time I was in college, it was freshman year, and I was up late one night, and you guys ever see those really weird fitness infomercials online, and you just see them on the television say, if you want to lose 20, 30, 50 pounds, you should do this. Well, being the young college student I was like, well, I'm a little heavy, so yeah, I want to get something like that. And I remember buying it online and everything, and now you can track all your packages to see where it's at. So like, it'll tell you it's being boxed up right now. It's on the truck. It's getting to the destination. You get a chance to see all that. And if you have anything like Amazon or anything like that, you can pay extra money, get 2 one-day express shipping. It'll be at your door that quickly. It's awesome. So what happened was I made this order, and it said it would take about 7 to 14 business days. Fine. I can wait that long. Well, if you've ever been into a college post office, it's a madhouse in there because you have 1,000 students using the same area trying to order all these different items, and it takes so long to organize everything. I still remember this too. I got down there and I got an email saying, your package has arrived from the tracking information. I got a chance to go in there and see all the boxes and everything. I saw a box that looked like it belonged to me. I was like, oh, well, I think that's my package. And the post office person looked at me and said, well, no, if it is, we'll send you a notification. You'll know. Okay. So in my head, I'm like, I'm going to keep coming back every single day, and maybe they'll realize, oh, maybe it is his package. I got there for 2 weeks. Constantly, every day, about noon, I would go down and say, I think that's my box. Well, after 2 weeks, they finally said, oh, by the way, your package arrived. It was the same box. I'm like, okay, cool. But as a society, we've been so spoiled. Really, we have. If we don't have enough time to make dinner, or maybe we're too tired to make dinner, what do? Go off to a restaurant, go through the drive-thru, have all your meal, 2,000 calories in 5 minutes. Easy. I know for myself, there'll be nights where I would get back from BCM at 10, 11 o'clock at night and say, well, I haven't eaten anything yet, so I'll go through the McDonald's drive-thru, get food, and go home. We've been so spoiled because everything is so fast that we don't have to wait anymore. If we want something, we can pay $20 extra to have one-day shipping. It will go from California to West Virginia in a matter of 1 day. It's amazing to think about. Whenever I was getting my visa information set up for Liberia, I had to send overnight envelopes nonstop. And what would have usually taken a long period took 2 months. And it's amazing. But it seems like nowadays, because of how fast-paced we are, if we have to wait even a little bit of time, our patience runs thin really quick. They say patience is a virtue. It's one of those things where, yes, you have to work on it, but I can guarantee you, if you don't have it, you know you don't have it. Nowadays, if we go to a restaurant and it says 30-minute wait, what do? We leave. I'm not going to wait 30 minutes for my food. I'd rather go off to Arby's and go through the drive-thru and get it within 5 minutes. I know I've done that a lot. And as we get into the Word today, we're still in the book of Joshua. As I said, I love the Old Testament. I love learning about what God did with these ordinary people. And at this point in time, God is getting to the point where he says, I want to make sure that you all understand that this is my power. You didn't lead the people out of Egypt. I led you to get out of Egypt. You did not make the 10 Commandments. I gave the 10 Commandments to you. And if you read the Old Testament, it's this long story of people saying, I did this, I did that. And God's like, no, wait, hold up. Let's stop and talk about this for a moment, because obviously you know you're not in charge. And Joshua is one of those ways. Before we get into the scripture, we're about to talk about Jericho. Back then, Jericho was a powerhouse. No one could get in, no one can get out, unless the commander said, hey, you're able to leave or you're able to enter. It was so marvelous. It was literally like how Rome was. The armies could not even penetrate the entrance. The wall was so big and so strong that it was nearly impossible to do anything against. But of course we know with God all things are possible, and it's wonderful that we have this story to share. Beginning in Joshua chapter 6 verses 1 through 7 says this. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all people give a loud shout, then the wall of the city will collapse, and the people will go up, every man straight in. So Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the people, advance, march around the city with the armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. This is why this is so amazing. Because back then, war was a big deal. If you're about to go into war and you're about to face a city like this, you are strategizing, you're saying, we need to have an entrance point, we need to have an exit point, we need to do this, we need to do that. God just basically told Joshua and his men, you're just going to march around the walls. That's it. You're not going to break down the door, you're not going to dig underneath the wall and try to get, no, all you're going to do is march around the walls. And I will give these men to you. And what's even more interesting is it wasn't going to be a one-day task. He didn't say, just do it for 1 hour. And as soon as you do it for 1 hour, everything will be great. No, he said, do it for 7 days. And on the 7th day, do it multiple times. And I will deliver these people to you. Now, if you ever get a chance to read about all the prophets, some of the prophets, whenever God would tell them something like this, they would question it. They had this hard head and they would say, you know what, God, I might have faith in you, but I'm not that crazy. And I can only imagine what's going through Joshua's head. They're about to go against the superpower of the world. And all God said was, bring some horns and march. And that was it. And once you continue, beginning in verse 15, it says, on the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. Except that on that day, they circled the city 7 times. The 7th time around, when the priest shouted the trumpet blasts, Joshua commanded the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury. When the trumpet sounded, the people shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the people gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So every man charged straight in, and he took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord and destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. So think about that. Try to picture yourself in Jericho at this point in time. You're told that you are in the most protected area of all time. You're told that you have this enormous wall that will stop any force from coming through. And I can only imagine sitting in my house one day thinking I'm safe, everything's going to be great. Then you hear this loud noise and realize the wall just fell over. Now, of course, you would be thinking some monumental power destroyed this wall. You would be thinking, whatever just knocked over that wall, I don't want to see. Because chances are it's going to be 10 times bigger than me, 10 times stronger than me, and I'm not going to be able to do anything against it. But then you just have the Israelites, normal-sized human beings, come through because the wall just collapsed. And even more important is understanding that whenever the Israelites did this, God didn't tell them that you're going to take everything for your own and say it's your own possession. No, Joshua said everything is going to be sacred for the Lord. But what's even more powerful about this story is in this day and age, we're so used to having everything at our feet immediately. We don't want to wait anymore. Whenever we see the newest thing on television, whether it's the newest phone, the newest car, the newest food, whatever it is, we want it right here, right now. But Joshua, he was told, if you are patient, God will deliver. If you wait and you follow my instructions, you obey everything that I have commanded you, what you desire will be given to you. Because obviously by that point in time, he has already been told by God that I will deliver Jericho. So his desire was to continue doing God's will. But instead of a 1 day, 1 hour march, it took 7 days. And on the 7th day, they had to march around 7 times. Now, it would be a lot easier if maybe Jericho was as small as this church and you just march around the church 7 times. But of course, that wasn't the case. Jericho was a superpower. It inhabited thousands upon thousands of people in different areas and armories and this and that and the other. So whenever you marched around, chances are it took more than just 1 hour. It took a lot of time to get around there. And instead of stopping halfway and saying, you know what, God, I feel silly. I feel so pointless doing this, Joshua and his men pursued and said, we're going to continue marching and we're going to continue being persistent because we know that God has already spoke to us and we know what's going to happen. Because God didn't hide it from them. He told them exactly what they needed to do and exactly what would happen. And what happened? Joshua did exactly what he was told to do, and he was given exactly what was supposed to happen. But once again, in this day and age, we don't like being patient. We want everything at the snap of our fingers. Whenever I had the chance to go out to Liberia, it was so interesting to see how people work out there. For those who don't know, out in Liberia, it's like a hierarchy. The elderly get served first, and if you have a degree in anything, you're served even faster than the elderly. There was one day, Dr. Menjay, great man, but of course, this is his culture, and I don't judge his culture. There was one day where we went out to his beach house, and we got a chance to sit on the side and just look out and just see all the animals and smell the water and everything. I remember watching him start stepping down the stairs to go to his usual spot. And as he's walking, I saw everyone rushing by him, putting up a plastic table, an umbrella, and chairs. I saw him sit down, and he had his other friends with him, and he sat down with them. And next thing you know, one of the other guys came down with a chair. I thought, oh, so he's going to go down there and sit with them. No, he brought a chair for Dr. Menjay's feet. And it happened within 5 minutes. I mean, Dr. Menjay was not standing that long until they put a chair underneath him. How many of us could say that if we had a life like that, we would love it? Everything brought to you, not have to worry about it, it would happen immediately. But thankfully in the Bible, there's no place in the Bible where it says God's going to give you everything you want in a matter of minutes. How many times have we seen people, even being guilty of ourselves, that we go to God and we treat him like a genie? We don't treat him like the creator. We say, you know what, God, I want money, I want this, I want that, and I want it right now. Exactly how I perceive it, exactly how I say it, I want it. Now, chances are, unless you all have a different testimony, I've never experienced that before. Usually God will say, all right, well, I'll give it to you my way, and I'll work with you, but I won't work for you. We almost treat God like he's almost our servant when really it's supposed to be the other way around. We serve him. We abide by his will and by his schedule, not the other way around. And I ask myself, why do we do that? Because once again, as I have already mentioned, we are a spoiled culture. We really are. We don't believe in simplicity anymore. Whenever we go to a person's house, I love having people over. One of the first questions that I almost ask, or they almost ask me every single time is, what's the Wi-Fi password? I haven't been on Facebook yet. I need the Wi-Fi password. I always love that question because it's like, well, I wanted to talk to you, but okay, well, I'll give it to you. I guess that works. And how many times have we ever been in a situation where, once again, we just don't want to wait? I already mentioned the fact, maybe some of us leave here to go to a restaurant after church, and they tell us, well, it's going to be a 15-minute wait. How many of us actually sit there and wait? There was one day, a couple of us, we went over to Crackle Barrel. It was a 30-minute wait. And you had two choices. Sit there and wait the 30 minutes or go across the street to Arby's. Guess what we did? I mean, we went across the street to Arby's. Because we don't live in a patient society anymore. And I know this so well because I know a lot of people my age, they don't want to wait. They want everything given to them right here and now. They say, you know what, I have a college degree, I deserve the best. No. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, because you're prepared, I'm going to bless you. So how do we work on patience? How do we acquire something that to us it seems almost just untangible? First and foremost, we need to be in prayer to God. I don't know how many times where we go to God for prayer, but the thing is, we don't concentrate on who He is. We concentrate on what we want. I almost describe that kind of relationship like that annoying friend that you don't want to talk to because they bug you all day. Just imagine, I'm sure we all been in that state, whether it's a family member or a friend, where they only contact you when they need something. Hey, you know what? I need $10. You give them their money, and they don't talk to you for months. Next time they talk to you, oh, by the way, can I borrow your car? It's like, hi. Life does happen in between here and then, but okay, yeah, I can help you. And after maybe years of helping this person, eventually you get pretty much annoyed. Because they don't ask you how you're doing. They just say, I want everything you have. Please help me. I can only imagine how God feels when we do that to Him. We're not patient with Him. We go to Him in prayer and say, you know what, God, I need this, I need that, I need this. Amen. Okay, I'm going to go off and do whatever I want to do. I always heard it explained this way, how you properly assess prayer. Pastor Seth Fallon, he used to work at South Porch Baptist Church. He follows to something called the Joy Rule. Joy, J-O-Y. Jesus, others, yourself. Whenever you go to prayer, you praise God for all that He has already given you. You pray for others, for their healing, for their comfort. And usually by this point, you're already 5 minutes to do the prayer, so whenever you think about yourself, you're like, and just be with me. Okay, amen. Because by that point in time, you're like, I prayed for everybody else, I'm good. I love hearing stuff like that because, of course, whenever we go to God in prayer, it's not about what we need, about what we want, but it's about what He has already given first. That's like whenever I shared that quote with you all. What would happen if God gave us everything that we thanked Him for the day before? I know there are days where I would wake up, I would not have clothes in my house, I would not even have a house. And I'm sure I'm not the only one guilty of that. Because instead of being patient with God and talking with God and building a relationship with God, we want everything here and now and not want to wait for it. So the first way that we can gain patience with God and learn how to love properly and be patient to others is, first and foremost, we have God enter our lives in the morning with prayer to Him. I know people say how dangerous it is to pray to God for patience. But chances are, if you're afraid to ask that, that is something you need. Next thing, easily, be in the Word. There are so many great testimonies from the prophets, from Jesus, from Paul, from so many different people who wrote down their lives where they had to be patient with God. And if you read these stories, you learn about whenever they weren't patient and what the punishment was. We learned about Moses. He wasn't patient with God. What happened to him? He was cast out of the promised land. We learn about Jonah. He wasn't patient with God. He said, I have my own path, I have my own desire. And what happened with him? He was swallowed by a big fish and brought to the land that he needed to go to. God will still find a way, whether or not we say, I accept your ways. Just the only issue is it might not be the most pleasant way. As you all know, I experienced that in Liberia. I went out there thinking that I was out there for God's purpose, and he made it abundantly clear that it wasn't. And I ended up getting malaria and typhoid, which if you want to hear about that, I'll share that a little later. But we have so many different testimonies of all these great men and women where you see what happened with them. Whenever they were patient with God, God provided just as he promised. If they were impatient with God, God still found a way to get his job done. Whether you're swallowed by a big fish or you're told you just can't have it. And of course, the biggest example of patience that we get a chance to see in the Bible is Jesus Christ himself. I mean, we get a chance to live his life and see what he did. Just imagine how patient he had to be after a long day of hard work and giving up all the power he can. He would get maybe, 5 hours of sleep and wake up the next day and do the same thing all over again. He never truly had a time by himself. There was even a time where he was crossing the Sea of Galilee to kind of get away from the other people, and they went to the other side waiting for him. I cannot imagine how crazy his life could have been. But even during that time, we get a chance to see how patient he was, because first and foremost, he still made time for God. His Father, even though he was God, he still made time for the God. And overall, instead of telling everybody, you know what, I can't do this, I just want to get the job done, he said, I want to be here and complete my mission before anything else. If we get a chance to learn about these testimonies and learn about the difference between what God does when we're patient and when we're impatient, I can guarantee it will drastically change us for the better. Because I don't know about you all, but I know for myself personally, if I've been impatient with God, he makes it abundantly clear. If I say, you know what, God, I can do this on my own, I learned very quickly that that's not the case. Because whatever I did turns into ashes. But I do know if I wait for God, and I'm sure other people can attest to this too, if we wait for God, he does fulfill his promises. He does provide. He does help you get through any situation. Because through him, all things are possible. That means we have to be patient for him. We get a chance to learn that through the Bible. And the last thing we need to learn is obviously being patient with one another. We know we're not perfect. I mean, once again, I'm sure I say this all the time, but if we were perfect, Jesus would not have died on the cross for us. I can only imagine how patient God had to be with us. If you read, there's a lot of different doctrines on this. I love learning more about theology and learning from some of the greatest minds inside of Christianity. But they say between Malachi and Matthew that there was a 400 period of silence. Just imagine how frustrating that had to be for God. He literally gave us everything. He didn't beat around the bush. He started with Adam and Eve, gave them the garden, gave them literally dominion of all creation. And we messed up. Then every time he would give us something great, whether it was Samson or David, we would still mess up somehow. And I can only imagine during that period of silence, he's probably thinking, why? Why does this keep happening? Then, of course, he finished the job by bringing himself to this earth. But I can only hope and pray that I would have the same patience in others that God has the patience in myself. Because I can guarantee if I would look at myself in the mirror or have that third person perspective and see how crazy I would do and how many stupid things I would do because I didn't want to wait for it, that I'm sure I would be greatly disappointed with all I did. And maybe I'm not the only one saying that. Maybe there are other people who can relate. But it seems like our patience wears thin with other people. Something Ron says all the time, and I love when he says this, because we have that Sunday school downstairs. It's a wonderful Sunday school. He says, whenever we have expectations in other people, we only disappoint ourselves. Ain't that so true? Honestly. And maybe it's not as crazy as you would think of a prophet. Maybe you come home and someone's been home all day and you just hope that all the dishes are done, the carpet is clean, dog's been taken out, and all these great things are happening. But what happens? You come home and it's not done. And you just immediately snap. Because your patience for others was not incorporated. Because you said, I want it to happen this way and that way. If that person does not fulfill my needs, I'm not going to be happy. I know from a child's perspective, my mother, she would do that with me all the time, and given I probably could have done more. But regardless, it seems like our patience for others runs really thin. But I can guarantee you, if we embrace other people, understanding that we need to be patient with them, just as God is patient with us, it will drastically change how we think and how we act. Because once again, I'm not sure about you, but I know I have made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm still saved by grace, but I'm sure there are some days where God is shaking his head saying, well, that was just dumb. Don't do that. Patience is a virtue. It's something that I truly believe is not valued today. And we get a chance, once again, we looked at Joshua. We looked at how God fulfilled his promise. He allowed Joshua to conquer the greatest superpower of his time because he was patient and followed God. And if we can live our lives and be obedient to God's will, we know what the end result is. If we are at least patient enough to allow God to be God and not take control, I truly believe that we will be blessed in the end. And if you don't believe me, I think the Bible says that pretty clear. So as we depart from here, pray for patience. As terrifying as that sounds, pray for patience. Because chances are, if we're patient, we will see God move mountains for us. Whether it's a month or a week or a year, does not matter. If we are patient with God, he will provide just as he has always promised. Let us pray.